Okay, so here are the rails, and here is our show.
Completely off. Completely gone today. What in the world? Derailed. Yay, you're here. Welcome to the CK and GK podcast. Let's get going.
It's Tuesday! And you know what's coming up? The big game, the Superb Owl, the NFL season finale. And last week, Caitlin and I talked about the moral dilemma of watching NFL football and how all of these injuries are coming out of this sport. But the Super Bowl is still a cultural phenomenon, and we want to make sure that everybody is up to date on all the lingo. So we have taken our 2 episodes from last year where we talked about football vocabulary as well as the rules of the game and edited them into one fabulous little snack for your ears. So enjoy listening.
Today, we are really excited because we are gearing up for the Superb Owl, which we will talk all about.
If you have no idea what Jenny's talking about, she's talking about the Super Bowl. She's just moving letters around. She's putting the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Well, you know that there's trademark issues and we can't say those words.
Well, okay, fine. The big game at the end of the football season. My bad. Please
The
don't
big
sue
game.
us. So if you are like me and you have a partner, a loved one in your life who is into football, even the slightest bit, there is a chance that you've had something yelled at the television around you and not understood what that means. Is that fair?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So this is where Jenny's comment of, you can always say move the chains or he was robbed or whatever kind of comes into play. But as educators, Jenny and I feel like we have a duty to explain a few things. And I personally believe that one way that people feel excluded from a community is through a lack of knowledge of the vocabulary, right?
Sure.
Through language.
Language defines a culture.
Right. So
Of course.
by giving you the words and their meanings, you now have entrance into a community. And even if you don't want to be a part of that community, you can at least understand the language of that community. So that's really what I'm trying to do here is help you feel included in football land so that when your loved one is shouting things at the TV screen, you can go, oh, okay, I get it. You don't have to care, but you can at least understand.
Absolutely.
All right. So I've prepared a list of
550,000 words, guys.
Buckle up, guys.
Here's the deal. I was like, oh, share me your vocab list. And I looked at it, I was like, wait, what?
No, it's not that long, but I will say this. Jenny's making a face. I'm thinking she's just telling me that she was impressed by my work.
No, I was both impressed and embarrassed.
And
because
horrified.
We're going to talk about the rules of the game on next week's episode, and I do not have that kind of notes at all.
But here's the thing. What we wanted was for when Jenny's going to go into the rules of the game and the objectives and how to understand what's happening, you won't understand what she's talking about unless we give you some background knowledge, unless we give you some vocabulary to understand. So here it is. Football vocab, an introduction. I just did an arm waving, welcoming, like the more you know kind of star thing. So we're going to start with the basics, okay? The first thing that anyone ever taught to me about football was in football, you have 4 tries to move the ball 10 yards. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Each one of those tries is called a down. There's your first vocabulary word, down. So the objective is to get a first down because that means that you've moved the ball 10 yards and then you get to try again. So if you hear first down, that's usually a good thing for the team that's pursuing those downs. And then we can get into what fourth down means, but we'll probably do that later on in a different episode. You need to know what an end zone is. An end zone is the 10-yard section on the field on either side. Players can score a touchdown when the ball crosses the goal line, and the goal line is the line that separates the field from the end zone. You might know this and you might not, but there's kind of 3 little sections of a team for each football team. There's offense, which I'm not going to define because I hope that you know that. Defense, which I also am not going to define, but there is special teams, which is something that a lot of people don't know. And special teams is made up of the specialized players who are not necessarily on offense or defense. It's just another way of saying these are the people who are on the field during kicking times.
Right.
And you can be on either offense or defense and then also participate in special teams stuff.
Correct.
Especially with like receivers and stuff. You'll see that happening a lot. The line of scrimmage. And I'm going to pull a Sheldon Cooper here. The Sheldon Cooper line about Texas. First of all, Sheldon Cooper says football is ubiquitous in Texas, which I love because it's true. That's why Sheldon knows football. Line of scrimmage is the imaginary transverse line separating the offense from the defense. That's the Sheldon Cooper description. But basically, it's where the ball is placed for the start of the next play. And the line of scrimmage changes every time the ball changes position. So it could move forward or it could move backward, but it's always the line that separates the 2 sides of the teams, the 2 teams. It'll be like empty in the middle, and you'll see like the ball when they are zooming in on the line of scrimmage. The chain gang, that's the folks who are moving the chains on the sidelines of the field, and the chains are 10 yards long. There's a pole on either end, and I ran the chains in high school. I did chain gang like once or twice for a couple of freshman football games.
Oh,
so that was pretty
fun.
fun. Yeah, but you basically are responsible for indicating who has the ball and like how far they have to go. So the players can kind of look off to the side and go, okay, we have this far to go.
It's a measuring tool.
Yeah, it's just a measuring tool. It makes it easy. A snap is when the center, so he's the center line guy who's right in front of the quarterback. The center gives the ball to the quarterback to start a play. That's a snap.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of direct snapping right now.
Yes.
To where they are snapping the ball just to start the play, but it might go directly to a wide receiver or to a running back. So it doesn't always go straight to the quarterback, but the snap is when the center picks up the ball to start the play.
Right. And then it's also something that happens when you're about to see a kick happen. You'll see a snap happen then too. There'll be like a long snapper who will toss the ball to the holder for the kicker to kick the ball. Turnover. This is when the ball accidentally changes possession. So one team has the ball, it'll get dropped or stripped from a person or intercepted, or there'll be an unsuccessful 4th down where they don't convert it into a 1st down. And so they lose the ball.
I like the word accidentally there.
It is accidental, right? Because if it's a change of possession, you'll know it's coming. There'll be a kick or something that lets you know, but it's definitely accidental. A return is when a receiver catches the ball and runs it towards the opposing team's end zone to try and gain some yardage, potentially score. So you'll hear like kick return, punt return, something like that. And a fumble, and this one's pretty common, but it's when the ball gets dropped, but it's live and anyone can then pick it up and turn it into a play, either by scoring or just taking possession or whatever. So that's some basics. Jenny, how's it going so far?
I'm just making notes as you're talking about how I want to structure the rules of the game using this language. So it's very interesting pre-teaching the vocab.
Yeah, I found that it helped when I was teaching history and geography, just to like, because then the kids would see the word and they'd be like, wait, what does that even mean? And then you have to stop, define the word because it's being used in context. And a lot of times context does help with the meaning, right? But it doesn't always help. And just being able to have some background on it was really helpful for my kids. So that's why I'm doing it now. And I'm calling you all my kids, even though there's a chance that we're all the same age. There you go. So a few notes about scoring. There are 5 ways that you can score in football. So you can get a touchdown, and that's when the ball crosses into the end zone, and that's worth 6 points. You can get an extra point, which is an opportunity for the team that made a touchdown to kick the ball in between the field goal posts, and that counts as 1 point, and they kick it from the 15. If they don't make it, they don't get any points. Or they can either go for the extra point and get 1, or they can go for what's called a 2-point conversion. And that's when the team who scores the touchdown lines up at the 2-yard line and they try to run it into the end zone again or pass it into the end zone again to try and get 2 points instead of 1. Again, if they don't make it, they don't get any points.
I always think of it as like a bonus touchdown.
Yeah, that's
Like
exactly
you're
what
doing
it looks
another
like.
play to try and get another touchdown.
Right. That's exactly what it looks like. There's a field goal. This is kind of a contextual thing, but you'll usually see this when there's a team that's in like a 4th down position where they're like, all right, well, you know, we're 45 yards back. We are clearly not going to make a touchdown. We're having a hard time with this, but let's go ahead and kick a field goal. And that's an opportunity for the kicker to come onto the field and try and again kick the ball between the field goal posts, and they get 3 points for that. And then a safety. And this is a little confusing, but there's a position that's a safety, and then there's a way to score called a safety. And so I'm not going to get into positions because that's probably more than anyone cares about, at least who listens to this show. But a safety is when you tackle your opponent who has the ball in their end zone. You get 2 points for that. That one's probably the most complicated one. And you'll see like a weird, it kind of looks like the hands in prayer emoji thing, but that's the signal for a safety. Those aren't very common, I would say.
No.
What do you think?
No. You
Pretty
will
uncommon.
see the other 4 in just about every game.
Yeah, pretty much.
But safeties are sporadic because safety is also not a strategy, right?
It's accidental.
This is a total accident that your team is doing so poorly that they are 100 yards away from their end zone and then being tackled in it.
As someone who's a casual fan of football and watches like probably 1 or 2 games a week, and by watches I mean they're on in the background and I'm kind of halfway paying attention, I can tell you that I can't remember the last time I saw a safety. So there's that, if that helps. So there is some offensive terms and some defensive terms we got to get into here. So I'm going to start with offense. So we've all heard the word quarterback. I want to make sure I am clear on what that is. This is basically the director of the offense. He calls the plays, he starts the plays, he handles the snap. He will either hand the ball off to another player to run it and try and get those 10 yards and get a first down or get a touchdown, or he'll pass the ball to a receiver. Quarterbacks have to be able to run with the ball. They have to be able to pass accurately and basically have really good spatial awareness. It takes a lot of skill to be a good quarterback. So that's why they are the director of the team, basically. The offensive line is the line of players who's in front of the quarterback. They are basically the blockers for the offense. So their job is either to pass block for the quarterback so that he can make a pass and have time to throw the ball, or run block to make space for the player who is running the ball. Typically, you're going to see big dudes on the offensive line. If you see small dudes on the offensive line,
You're watching a Packers game.
right? Perfect.
And we're Packer fans at my house, but I'll tell you, Aaron Rodgers has nobody protecting him. Sometimes the offensive line is called the O-line.
Yes, you will see that. The center is the center player on that line, and he's the one who snaps the ball to whomever is going to have it for that play. Wide receiver, pass catchers. That's their job. The pocket, basically the area where the QB kind of, when they get the ball, they'll drop back into this little space. You kind of retreat, take a few steps back, and you'll see that the offensive line will create a block so that the quarterback has like a little space that he can move around in. That little space he can move around in is called the pocket.
This is his thinking spot.
Yes.
As the quarterback, you're going to make the decision of what's going to happen next once you have the ball. And so in the pocket, he is looking to see if there's anybody out there who could be a pass catcher, if there's anyone open who's ready to receive a pass, or does he want to go ahead and try and run the ball and make it to that first down line?
Right.
And when you hear the phrase, the pocket is collapsing or the pocket collapsed, it's because his O-line wasn't able to protect him. And so the defensive players are moving into his thinking space.
Right. The other one that I wasn't necessarily going to include in here, but because I heard my husband shout it at the television, shout out to my husband who helped me with many of these definitions, is an audible, as in like the reading aloud company, right? An audible is when the quarterback who has a headset inside his helmet and can communicate with the coaches will change. He'll probably see something at the line of scrimmage and go, we need to change the play right now. And an audible is when he changes the play at the line, even though the play has already been told to him in his head. So he'll change it just based on what he's seeing in front of him and call an audible. So that's what I heard yesterday. It was call an audible. I didn't even say that correctly.
And you might have used that phrasing in your family.
Right.
Right? You might have heard this because it is a kind of a colloquialism. I'm going to call an audible and we're going to order pizza.
Right. Exactly.
And what you're saying is, I'm going to change the play at the last minute by saying out loud what we're going to do rather than sticking with what we had just huddled and discussed.
Right. And to be clear, this is usually done in code. It's not something that they're like, okay, well, I'm going to pass it to Johnny and Johnny's going to run the ball behind me. And then it's very much like we're going to, this is the blue 42 sort of situation, right? Like that's what they're talking about. So that's some offensive terms that might help you as you navigate a discussion with a football person or just listen to someone scream at the television. Some defensive terms. So we've got defensive line, essentially the opposite of the offensive line. This is the front line of players for the defense. They're the big guys on the line. They've got their hands on the ground. Their job is to defend against run plays and to rush the passer, which what we mean is come at the person who's passing the ball, typically the quarterback. Part of the defense is the secondary. You're going to hear secondary all the time. And this is the back line of players on the defense. These are also known as defensive backs. These are like the fast little dudes who are playing defense. So on the defense, you're going to see big dudes at the front and then the defensive backs in the back, and the defensive backs are going to be little because they're fast and they're over there trying to defend against passes most of the time. A sack, another term you're going to hear all the time. This is when a quarterback is tackled behind the line of scrimmage because most likely his pocket collapsed.
Right. And this is very, very dangerous.
Oh, it's dangerous. Explain.
It is very dangerous because a sack is when the quarterback is tackled behind the line of scrimmage. Quarterback is tackled.
It's a big deal.
Right? This is not a player who, quarterbacks are big guys. Like they're football players, right? Let's be real.
Right.
But
right.
His job is not to block. His job is not to be the big, strong guy. It's to throw.
Right.
And so being sacked, if he doesn't expect it, a lot of quarterbacks are injured when they are tackled because they're not ready for it. This is why you'll also see a lot of quarterbacks when they are making a play, go ahead and slide and stop their run so that they're not tackled.
Right.
And we'll talk more about being down by contact and all of those things in next week's episode. But when the quarterback is sacked, if it's not done well, he can be really hurt.
Yeah, it's dangerous for him. It's also just bad in general because typically it'll happen when the quarterback has retreated from the line of scrimmage, which means it's a loss of yards. So if you're trying to get to 1st and 10 and then the quarterback is sacked on 1st down and 10 yards to go, which is what that means, then he could be in a new position where the line of scrimmage is now back, 3 or 4 yards. So instead of having 1st and 10, you could now have 2nd and 14.
And as a math teacher, we know that adding to a debt
is not good.
We don't want to do that.
No. So it just makes it harder for the offense to try and get those yards if your quarterback is sacked.
Sorry to interrupt, but
no, that was a good interruption. So 2 other things I kept hearing in my football life this past season, pass rush. So a pass rush is the defenders coming after the quarterback. So you're talking usually about defensive linemen. A pass rush is the big dudes coming after your QB. And then the other one, this is probably the bane of my existence, because let me tell you, I have heard this word 1,000 times and I still can't recognize it on the screen. I know what it means, but I can't recognize it. But this is blitz. And you're going to hear your loved one shout out, "Stop that blitz," or like whatever all the time. But this is anyone other than a defensive lineman attacking the quarterback. So typically like a linebacker or a defensive back attacking your quarterback is a blitz. Now, not saying that you're going to be able to recognize it on the screen because, again, been watching this for a long time and I still don't understand when it's happening. Like I can't really see it, but I know what it means. And now you do too.
Well, also, shame on us if we... Oh,
Dog.
yeah, the dog
Dog.
is hitting the microphone.
It's fine.
Also, shame on us if we think that we're going to teach you how to see something on the screen by listening to a description of it.
That's like when my father-in-law will tell me, "Oh, well, can you tell that that's a curveball?" And I'm like, "No." What? No.
No.
Whatever.
Especially not if you're listening to it on the radio.
Right? I'm almost done, but I got a few more things I got to share. A few more words. One of them is a kick or a punt, and this is a special teams word. This is when one team kicks the ball to the other team. A kick and a punt, they look the same, but they have different purposes. A punt usually happens on 4th down, right?
I'm going to punt. We're going to order pizza. Just like calling an audible. It's a decision that you make because you're forced to.
Right. A kick could be a kickoff, like you're starting a quarter, or not a quarter, you're starting a half, or it could be like you making a field goal kick. So those are intentional and planned, whereas a punt is like, well, now we have to punt, right? They're different. But they still both require special teams to come out onto the field. Onside kick is when the kicking team kicks the ball just kind of a short distance to try and regain possession of it. So typically when you're kicking it off to the other team. If you're doing an onside kick, then you're trying to keep it for yourself.
On your side.
On your side, right. A squib, which I don't usually hear this word. Jenny's giving me the face like, what is that? A squib is like when the ball gets all like squiggly and weird. Like because it's a football, when you kick it, they don't bounce normal. So it's like all wobbly and bouncy and stuff.
I've never heard this word.
Yeah, but it's done on purpose. Like you'll see it and you'll go, "Oh, that was a mistake." No, it probably wasn't a mistake. They did it on purpose. They're just trying to burn through the clock typically when that happens. 2 other words, a fair catch. A fair catch is when the receiver who's trying to catch the kicked ball will literally wave his hands in the air. A lot of time you might see one hand go up and around, like over the shoulder sort of thing.
Kind of a backstroking type motion.
Yeah, it looks like a backstroke. Or you might see like both hands kind of go up and like do sort of a weird wave where they make an X and then come back out. But you usually will see, I see the one hand more often than anything else. But what they're doing is they're saying, "Hey, I'm not going to run once I get the ball. Don't tackle me."
Yeah.
That's a fair catch.
I see where this ball is going to land. I know I can catch it.
Right.
I am going to catch this ball, and that is going to be the end of this play.
Right. And I'm going to stay right where I'm standing, and I promise I will not advance the ball. You can't signal a fair catch and then run. Like you're not allowed to do that. So a lot of times they'll do that if they're trying to avoid a fumble, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one in special teams language is a touchback. A touchback is when the kickoff or the punt goes into the end zone and the team that's receiving the ball doesn't run it out of the end zone. If you get a touchback, then that means that the ball's in the end zone and that you get to start. The new line of scrimmage is on your own 20-yard line. So it's kind of a guaranteed position to start your what's called a drive for your 1st and 10, your first try to get 10 yards.
Right.
Okay. And now for the penalties. And then you don't have to listen to football speak for the rest of the week if you don't want to. So pass interference is the first penalty I have to address. And it's kind of an obvious one. So I was sort of thinking like, do I really address this? Except that pass interference to me usually just looks like good defense. So I would not be a good football ref, but it's when a player makes some sort of illegal contact with another player who's trying to make a catch. According to NFL rules, a pass interference could include holding, pulling, tripping, that's kind of obvious, putting hands in your face, or cutting in front of a eligible receiver. That's the word. There are some exceptions, like if it looks like it's an accident, like they bump into someone or they trip and fall or they jump up together and that's when like a hit happens or whatever, that typically doesn't count, but it can be subjective, which is one of the reasons that people get angry about pass interference calls.
The other thing is sometimes the officials are looking at in which direction the offending player was looking,
True.
because pass interference might look different if you're watching for the pass and then you just bumped into someone,
Right.
versus you are looking at the catcher and then grabbed them by
Putting
the
your
throat.
hands up. Right. Right. And putting your hands up. Right. Those are, they're different things and all that. So
Intention a lot of times is considered. Not always,
right, absolutely.
but intention a lot of times is.
And that's why it can be subjective, right? Because you could see it from a different angle than
Oh, the
someone
whole
else
game
could.
is subjective. Let's be real.
That's fair.
Ask the Cowboys. Or maybe the Patriots when they had Tom Brady.
Mm.
I'm just saying.
I will say, in terms of pass interference, you can have a pass interference call on either the offense or the defense.
This is correct.
It is possible to be an offensive player trying to catch the ball and still get a pass interference called on you. Holding, another subjective penalty. This is when you are restraining a player who does not have the ball. Offensive holding and defensive holding are two different things. Offensive holding is when you are grabbing or pulling or holding a defensive player down, intending to open up some sort of route for the ball to travel. Defensive holding usually happens when a defensive player is holding a receiver in an attempt to prevent them from being open. It's like a bad block, basically. You're holding their, physically actually holding their body. And you definitely cannot grab a face mask. So you'll hear face mask calls. That's like a big no-no.
You also may not grab them by their shoulder pads. That's called horse collar.
Yes, because you can hook your hand into their shoulder pads and rip them down. The NFL has made some effort to try and make some of these calls more inclusive so that more things can be called in an effort to protect the player's safety. Like that's really what they're kind of going for here. If you grab someone by the face mask, you can rip them down with so much force, you can really hurt them.
Right.
Same thing with horse collar, etc. But in this situation, offensive holding is more common. It is typically a 10-yard penalty, so it's a bad penalty. It can completely derail your strategy in that moment because you can go from 1st and 10, get a holding call, to now you're 2nd and 20.
Right.
And it's a big deal to get that call. False start. False start is when an offensive player moves after he's taken a set position. When you're on the line of scrimmage, if you're an offensive player, once your hand is down, you cannot move. This could be something as little as you shuffled your feet. Your hand is down in front of you and your feet took a tiny little 1-inch move. That can count as a false start. So that's kind of a big deal. And it's a 5-yard penalty every time. So again, you could go from 1st and 10 to 1st and 15 in a heartbeat. So it's a really undisciplined thing that you'll see happening. On the other side of that, you'll see an offside penalty. So if a false start is when the offense moves, an offside penalty is when the defense moves. But defensive offside is a lot harder to have that happen because you can be a defensive player on the D line and kind of make a jump, but you can return to your spot and not get called for false start. But it usually happens with a defensive back doing some sort of movement that he's not supposed to do, if I'm not mistaken. So there you go. And my last one, ready for this one? Easy one. Illegal formation. Illegal formation is typically when there's not enough players who are lined up on the line of scrimmage. I think there's supposed to be 7 guys on the line or something like that. And so you might have the wrong number of guys on the line.
Right.
Either too many or too few. Also a really easy, undisciplined one. That one shouldn't be happening very often at the professional level.
And it gets called a lot of times if we're exchanging players on the field.
Right. Substituting.
Right. And they're not thinking about what substitution is being made.
Not aware of the clock that will happen too. Yeah.
More often than not, this is not because the team doesn't know where they're supposed to stand. It's because they don't know how many people are on the field and what's going on.
Right. Right. It's like a lack of awareness sort of thing.
Right.
I feel like there might be one more, but I can't think of what it would be.
delay of game. If you are the offensive team and you don't start your play within the amount of time that you have to start, then that's a penalty as well. And sometimes that's a strategy to kind of throw off the other team.
Yeah.
Or just eat up clock time.
I think that's all that I have. And I'm just trying to make sure. Again, the goal of this was to give you some background information so that when Jenny starts explaining all of the rules of football for the Superb Owl, you can kind of have an understanding of what's happening. Even if you're not paying attention, you can hear a few words and understand why the person that is in the room with you and watching this particular football game, what they're actually saying and all that. So that was our goal here.
Okay, so today we are going to prepare you for an adventure that is coming very, very soon. This Sunday, in fact. This Sunday at about 10:30 p.m., the most toilets will be flushed at one time.
Ew. What?
I'm just saying, when the game is over, everyone's going to go to the bathroom.
Ew, gross.
All right. So we are recording this before we know who will be in this game.
That's true.
So, and I am not going to say any team names out loud because I do not want to be in trouble for jinxing it.
There's that. Also, this might be helpful to someone else in a year. So if we're talking about teams, it won't be relevant if we do that. So we're not going to jinx, and we're going to try and maintain some relevancy here.
I feel like that should just be my life motto. Just try and maintain some relevancy. Because of the current world situation, we know that you may or may not be watching this with friends. And you, in the future, one day, might get invited to something called a Super Bowl party.
Mm.
This is an event where people from different households gather, eat, and watch the game together in the same space.
What?
Perhaps even indoors.
Yikes. That was a thing. We used to do stuff like that, remember?
Yep.
That's why she's explaining it, because I don't.
Okay. So in order for you to enjoy this event, it would be good for you to have some background. So last week we went over a lot of different terminology. And if you haven't listened to that episode, I encourage you to go back and listen to that first, because I'm going to be using those words in this description. And while some of them will be defined in context, it's really helpful for you to have a little bit of background knowledge before we dive in.
Sure.
So I'm going to pause for just a second while you go back and listen to that episode. Okay, and we're back. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Someday there'll be a commercial in there.
I didn't expect to laugh. I really did. I thought you were just going to roll your eyes at me. So.
No, I just sat there and waited it out.
Okay, so first off, let's give a shout out to this same dude that helped you, James Alder.
Mm-hmm.
And then also thefootballgirl.com, which is a collection of articles and social media posts and blah, 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 blah about football. They also have merch if you want a t-shirt.
If you decide after listening to last episode and this episode that you are in it, you like football now, go get some of their merch.
Or if you decide that you think it's funny that you don't know anything about football, but you want a t-shirt that says, I'm a football girl. I do
appreciate the irony. I'm always good for an ironic t-shirt too.
So, all right. So this is a game of sports ball. Just like any other game, it's get the ball to the thing.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, in all of these sports ball games, whether it be hockey or soccer or basketball or football, it's get the ball to the thing.
Yes.
A football team is made of 11 players at one time. Now, a professional football team has way more than 11 players on their roster, but they can only have 11 players on the field at once. This is why the Seattle Seahawks is home of the 12s. Well, They're called Home of the 12s because A&M was the original 12th man, and we sued them when they called themselves the 12th man. But the tradition at Texas A&M comes from we yell for the team, and we are part of the team. The fans are the 12th man on the field. So there's
Nerds.
11 players on. Yeah, it's a cold. It's totally fine. It's one of those happy ones. Okay, it's 11 players on one team and 11 players on the other team. The team that's on offense or trying to score is moving in one direction, and the team that's on defense is trying to stop them.
So I want to make sure I understand. This is like you're going towards the other team's end zone. You're defending your own end zone, right?
Correct.
Your back is to your end zone all the time, and you're moving forward trying to get into the opposition team's end zone. Yes?
You have, as a team on offense, 4 chances to move the ball 10 yards.
Yep.
There are 100 yards on the field, and you do not necessarily have to start at yard 0.
Right.
For example, at the beginning of the game, the kickoff, which everybody knows what kickoff means because we have kickoff parties for this or kickoff events for that. It's the start of the game.
Right.
The kickoff, a lot of times they will start on the 20 because the ball has landed in the end zone and they're going to say, okay, I'll take it on the 20. It's called a touchback.
Touchback. You're right. Good job.
Yep. And so most of the time, you are not starting on your own 0. You do not have to move the ball 100 yards in order to score. So you have 4 chances to move the ball 10 yards.
Okay.
Each one of those chances is called a down.
Right.
The play starts with the defense lined up facing the offense.
On the line of scrimmage.
On the line of scrimmage. Very good. The center, who is on the offensive team, will snap or throw the ball to get the play started. Typically, it's to the quarterback, but they've been doing some direct snaps right to a wide receiver or right to a running back. And at that point, the quarterback, who we said was kind of like the director of the team, is going to start a play with the goal of moving that ball 10 yards to get another first chance or first down.
Right. To start over.
To start over and get 4 more chances.
Right.
If you are successful in moving the ball 10 yards, you get a new set of downs and you get to move 10 yards again, 10 yards again. Now, do you always move 10? No. Sometimes you're lucky enough to move 80 in one play.
Right.
Sometimes you move negative.
Right.
Because your quarterback was, as we learned last week, sacked. Or perhaps someone who had the ball and was trying to make a running play got tackled in the backfield and now they lost yards.
Yeah.
So if you were to make the ball, let's say you moved it 6 yards on your first down. You now are on your second down and you are at 2nd and 4 yards to go. So we call it 2nd and 4. If you are unable to move it at all, you would be at 3rd and 4, right?
Right.
We're counting.
It does happen.
If you lost yardage, you might be at 3rd and 6.
Right.
Now, when we get to the 4th try, the 4th down, this is when the team has to make a decision. Because if you have not moved that ball 10 yards at the end of the 4th down, the other team gets the ball right where you are at the line of scrimmage. So you can either, what we call, go for it and continue snapping the ball, giving it to the quarterback, and trying to either run or pass the ball.
You'll often see that when there's like a 4th and inches situation. So if it's
right.
4th down with like less than a yard to go, they'll call that 4th and inches. And so they will often make that attempt. However, if it's more than like 3 or 4 yards, they'll
Yeah.
use another option.
Right. Because the deal is you don't want to accidentally
Right.
turn the ball over
Right.
at that spot on the field when you could punt or kick the ball way downfield
Right.
and say, hey guys, you want to have a turn? You got to go get it. It's way over there.
Right. Exactly.
So that's when you bring out the special teams and you punt.
Right.
Okay. Now, that's basically what the offense is doing, right? They're trying to move 10 yards at a time with the ultimate goal of being get the ball into the end zone and score 6 points.
Right.
And that's called a touchdown.
Right.
You score a touchdown, you have an opportunity to score again, like bonus points.
Right.
You may either kick, and that's called a point after try, or an extra point. And then you have to kick it through the uprights like a field goal. And again, special teams.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can try for what we talked about last time, the 2-point conversion, where you are trying to move the ball back into the end zone through a traditional play. It can either be a pass or a run play.
Right.
Okay. So that's what the offense is doing. The defense's job is to try and stop. Try and get the ball back. Try and stop the marching of 10 yards at a time, or 20 or 80. And get the ball back for their team to switch out their players and become now the offensive team and move the ball the other direction.
Right.
Get the ball to the thing.
Exactly.
All right. So when you're looking at the field, the reason that we say we want 50-yard line tickets is because that is the middle of the field. We count 0 to 50 and then 50 back down to 0. So when you're looking at the field, the center is 50, and then there are markers every 10 yards after that. Oh, sorry, every 5. And then there are little hash marks, little tiny white markers that help us keep track of the ball on the field, and they represent 1 yard each.
Right.
The end zone has goalposts that you have to kick the ball through. They are 10 feet high. And they are 18 feet and 6 inches wide.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah. To the football girl. Did you also know that the college goalposts are wider?
It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
They should be.
Right?
They're kids.
Yeah, they're kids. Okay. Yeah. So a football game is played in 4 15-minute quarters, but you don't play 15 minutes nonstop. Anytime that the play stops, the clock, that's not true. Most of the time when the play stops, the clock stops.
This is why that Yo Mama joke of like, your mom is so stupid it takes her like 3 hours to watch 60 minutes.
Right.
That she could have been watching a football game.
She could have been watching a football game.
Yeah. It doesn't really work.
Yeah. This is why I said at 10:30 on Sunday night, the toilets will flush. Because even if kickoff is 7 p.m., it takes a long time to play an hour of football.
Yes, it does. And there's commercials. Those
there
are
are commercials. And that's, everybody knows about this.
That's what you're here for. Let's be clear.
Commercial, right? All right.
Betty White was in a Super Bowl commercial. Remember that? When Betty White did the Doritos commercial?
Oh, yeah.
Oh. Sorry. I got sad again. Moving on.
Okay. Yeah. After the first and second quarter, we have halftime, and halftime is a break that's long enough for the players to actually go into the locker room, re-strategize,
get water, regroup,
get water, and come back out.
Yeah.
When you're on offense and it is time for you to start a play, remember we talked about some penalties last week. One of the ones that you can have is a delay of game. You actually have 40 seconds to get your play off the ground.
Oh, I thought it was only 25. Okay, 40. Good to know.
So if you do not get your play moving in the time, then you will receive a penalty.
For too much time.
So a lot of times you will hear the phrase RPO. And this stands for run, pass, option, which I like to make the joke that that's every single play in football.
Pretty much.
Like you always have the option to run
or pass. Right.
There's lots of different types of passes. There's lots of different types of runs. That's not something that you need to know about in order to enjoy the game.
Right.
You can know that the quarterback is going to talk to the team, talk to his leadership, and decide on a play, and then tell his team, okay, here's what we're going to do with the ball.
Right.
The center will snap the ball to him. The clock will start. Get the ball to the thing. Obviously, the object of the game is to get the most points. So we said that you can get 6 points for a touchdown, 2 points for a point conversion. Duh, it's in the name. Or you can get 1 point for the point after try or the kick, the extra point.
Right.
Now, there, like you said last week, there are other ways to score. If, for example, you have run out of downs and it's your fourth down, your fourth chance to move the ball 10 yards, and you don't think you're going to, but you are close enough to the uprights, you can kick the ball through the uprights for a field goal, and that's worth 3 points. And that will also give the ball to the other team with a kickoff. So you don't have to worry about where they're going to get the ball. And then the only way that the defense can score points is by having a safety. And that means that you are on defense, but you were able to stop the other team with the ball in their own end zone. So they are 100 yards away from scoring, and you just kind of rub salt in their wounds.
That's a good way to explain it. If you get a safety, again, it's rare, but it's also like clearly someone somewhere messed up. It's an accident. Like, it's not a thing that's supposed to be happening. If you're 100 yards away from your own, like from scoring, and then you get tackled in your own end zone, like that's rough. That's a ouchie kind of play.
Yeah. Now, we talked a lot about different penalties and things that can happen on the field. An interception is just what it sounds like.
Right. I don't think I went into that. Right.
No.
I don't think
the ball is
that one.
Intercepted by a defenseman who was not the intended receiver of the other team.
Right.
So he catches the ball. There's something special called a pick six. This means that the ball was picked off or intercepted and then run back to the end zone for 6 points. So the defense scored an offensive play by catching an interception and then running the ball all the way back and scoring as a touchdown.
Right, in the opposite direction. And if that happens after the pick six, they also get to decide if they're going to kick a field goal, right? Or kick that for the extra point. They still get to make, yeah, they get to make that decision. And then
it counts
after
as
that,
any other touchdown. So you can have the point after try, the extra point kick, or you can do a 2-point conversion.
And then the ball will go right back to the offense for that, there'll be a kickoff. Got picked off, to the team that got picked off. So then they will be able to try again.
Yes.
But it's often demoralizing. Did we talk about what a drive was last time? I don't think we did.
So this is just like driving a car, right? It's going a distance.
Right.
And so the drive is your turn on offense and with your downs. And so remember that if you manage to move the ball 10 yards, you get a new set of downs. That's still part of your drive. You're still holding on to the ball. When you are watching a ball game and you are trying to figure out what's going on, pay close attention to the score graphic that they are showing you on the screen, because it will underline or highlight the team that's playing offense. So you can see they have the ball. It will highlight for you how many timeouts they have left in the game. And timeouts for medical reasons don't count against your team. Right. But if you want to take a timeout to strategize, then that counts against you. You get 3 per half. The other things that you'll see in the graphic is what down they're on and how many more yards they have to go to hit the 10. And remember, the number might be more than 10.
Right.
I have seen 3rd and 28, right? There are times where they've got a lot more than 10 to go because their quarterback was sacked or they fumbled the ball and were able to recover it, but they lost 18 yards while doing that.
Oh, ouch.
So it'll tell you what down they're on, how many yards they have to do to get a new set of downs. It will tell you what quarter of the game you're in and how much time is left in that 15-minute quarter.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it will even give you statistics on how many yards they've gained in the whole game, how many passes they've thrown, or how many yards they've thrown for. But the little score graphic that is pretty much on the screen the entire time is a great tool for catching back up and say, okay, team A is on offense. It's 3rd and 4. So they're going to try and go for it. And we'll see if they are able to convert that 3rd down into a 1st down,
Right.
or if it is now a 4th down, and 4th and 4, you're going to kick.
Right. And you'll hear the term 3rd down conversion. And that just means that the team that's on offense was able to get a new set of downs and they're trying again. So that's, if you hear that, just be aware of what that is. The other thing I like on the screen that I feel like is really helpful when I'm understanding, okay, the team has 4 tries to move the ball 10 yards. On the screen, they will project a lot of the times where 1st down is located on the field. So you can actually see, okay, here's the line of scrimmage. It's the line that's in between the players on either side. And they're trying to go to this nice little yellow line that's cutting off this guy's leg or whatever it is. It helps a lot for people who understand enough about the game but can't actually see it. And a lot of the times the chains are not necessarily visible by people who are watching at home. So that's another reason to kind of take a peek at what they're displaying on the screen, because they are doing it to help you and it actually is helpful.
And so if they were to cross that line, wherever that player is called down, which means that they either fell or they were tackled or they dropped
with
the ball. With the ball. That's where the new line of scrimmage will be. They will set the chains there. So that's that phrase, move the chains. They got a new 1st down. So that 10-yard chain measuring tool is now going to have a new beginning.
So here was something that was a question of mine when I first started watching. But let's say that a quarterback throws a pass and the pass is 26 yards and not 10 yards. The team then doesn't have to move the chains only 10 yards. They actually
get credit for the full 26.
Right. They get credit for the entire distance that pass was thrown and caught for.
Correct.
Yes? Okay.
Yeah. But that doesn't count against their next set. They still have to move 10.
Right.
They reset.
Right. It's not like they get, it's not like you get 1st and exactly. 1st and only 4. No, it's 1st it's always, and 10.
Now there are a couple of times where you might see 1st and 5 because there was a penalty.
Right.
And so
another team, the defense maybe
so they get to replay their 1st down with a bonus of 5 yards.
Right.
And one of the great things about football is when there is a penalty, the referee announces exactly what the penalty is.
Right.
What the offense was and what the penalty will be.
Right. And you might see like that penalty is declined or whatever. What that typically means is that the refs have radioed in what the penalty is going to be, and there's an option for which penalty you can take. You can either take yardage or a loss of down or whatever. And so they will like sort of allow you to like make some choices. Again, that's more intermediate stuff. You don't need to worry about it. But if you hear that penalty,
I have a funny story about that. Because my mom was like, how can you decline a penalty?
Right.
Like,
you're not allowed to do that.
No. You are the team who was offended. Okay?
Right.
Let's say they were calling for pass interference.
Right. Your player got interfered with.
Right. And you could say, well, but he caught the ball and I want it to count.
Right.
So you could decline the penalty and say, I don't agree with that. I want this play to count.
Right. So if you are the offending team, you can't decline.
You don't get to decline your penalty.
But if you are just the one who is offended, then you get to decline it. Right.
I don't get to decline a speeding ticket.
Right.
But if the cop pulls me over and sees my child is covered in vomit, he can decline giving it to me.
Right. Exactly. Perfect. Oh my gosh. Vomit. Oh, I've been there, but I haven't been pulled over with it. But I think we've all had barf in the car.
I had it this morning.
Oh,
It's the worst.
the worst. There is nothing worse than barf in the car.
And not only is he throwing, I mean, Kit did really well because he threw up on a blanket.
Bless.
So it's like it's caught in the blanket.
Oh,
But as he is throwing
well
up,
done.
the low gas light goes on.
Oh!
And I'm like, I cannot deal with all of these things at one time.
Nope, overwhelmed.
No.
Instant
I
tears.
cannot be running out of gas and dealing with a kid that's throwing up.
No. No.
So we went to a gas station to clean him up.
Well, see, you just killed two birds with one stone. Amazing. Did you actually get gas while you were there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I told him, I'm going to pump gas. Here's some baby wipes. Start wiping yourself down.
Poor kid. He's 3. You're old enough to clean up your own barf. Deal with it.
I mean, he did. So, again, he did a really great job keeping it on the blanket. It was pretty nice.
What were we talking about?
Football.
Football.
Yeah.
Football.
You know, some other things that you need to know about this big game.
Yeah.
It is the result of a series of playoff games.
Yes.
Yeah. So football does have several rounds of playoffs to get to the big game, the Superb Owl.
Yeah.
The game floats stadium to stadium, not based on who is in the game.
Right. It won't be played in the location of one of the home teams.
So when we talked about the World Series, we said, hey, you know, the World Series is played at the 2 team stadiums, flipping back and forth.
Right.
The Super Bowl doesn't do that. Remember that there is a buffalo wing shortage. So don't be surprised if your order is too expensive.
Are we still in a chicken wing shortage right now?
Yes. I just went to the grocery store earlier this week and they still had a sign up limit 2 per customer.
No. Well, do we have anything else about football we need to talk about? I feel like we did a good football 101 sort of rundown here.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. I hope that got you all caught up on the language of football. I wanted to let you know that this weekend is Championship Sunday. In the NFC Championship, we will see the Eagles and the 49ers at 3 o'clock Eastern. And at 6:30 Eastern, we'll see the Chiefs play the Bengals. Now, sad face for us, our team, the Packers, never made it to the playoffs. And our playoff team, the Bills, also got knocked out. But if you've got some time and you want to find something great on the internet, let me point you in direction of the best yard decoration we have on my street. A giant inflatable Zubaz patterned buffalo.
Use your gift cards.
Make a choices.
Bye!
Hey friends, thanks for listening to the CK and GK podcast. Find us at CK and GK podcast on Instagram and Twitter, and rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, or anywhere else that you pod. See you next time.